One. Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business and life with a purpose. That purpose should be serving others and achieving success as you serve. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to learn how to do business and personal life to make an impact in the world. How will you serve today, and what impact will you create today? And my guest today is powerful. It's a unique style she has, but she's made an impact in this world. I've talked to some people, I've introduced to some people. She's a rock star. Diane, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's a delight to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to share the mic with you and be of use in the world.
I love that. And that's why you're here, because you're a servant. And I've got to say, we got to start with Quarter Moon Story, Acts. Naming your company. Let's dive into that.
Okay. I'll correct the name. It's Quarter Moon Story Arts. But that's okay because it's a full moon and everything's wackadoodle right now.
And I'm Italian, so I'm dyslexic. So between those two things, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So tell
so
us
you have
about
a question.
It. Yeah, tell us about
that. Quarter Moon Story Arts. Let's see. Quarter Moon is because it's a line from a country western song by Kathy Mattea. A quarter moon's better than none when you're walking a dark road, night road, and a quarter moon's better than none when you carry a light load. So to me, a quarter moon, a little sliver of light to help you, like a story guide would help you, is where that comes from. And story arts is because story is both art and science. I believe that stories, when they're heartfelt and artfully told, you can really make the engagement, connection, influence going on. And when you look at my logo, which I absolutely love, it's a lighthouse. It's a lighthouse on waves, and the quarter moon is hanging right up there. And the reason for the lighthouse is because I love lighthouses. People have a love affair all over the world. I don't know what it is, but all over the world, people have an affair with lighthouses. And here on Whidbey Island, I'm a docent for the Admiralty Head Lighthouse, and that stands up on a cliff about 90 feet high. And back in the old days when the ships were sailing, sailing under wind, then you'd be coming in from the Pacific Ocean, the Strait of San Juan de Fuca. You'd see that lighthouse up there, and you would know that you would have to steer a hard right to starboard to get on down into Admiralty Inlet and all the way to Seattle. So to me, a lighthouse is a navigational aid, but it's also a beacon of hope. So if anybody's done sailing and you've been out there on a dark night and you see that lighthouse, it says somebody's out there, somebody's watching, and I'm protected. So that logo was chosen deliberately so that I could, in a visual form, say to people that Quarter Moon Story Arts is a way to be helped getting into your right harbor so that you can figure out your story and share it.
How important are stories?
How much time have you got, Steve?
We got a few minutes.
How important are stories? Who here has never heard a story? Who here has never told a story? Who here has never been charmed or captivated or swept away or inspired by a story? And stories, people say that we're wired to tell story. I think it's kind of like hard and techie. I think that stories go into our bones. And I really believe that stories are organic, like wine. Italian wine, red, yeah.
Yep.
And by that, I mean, stories they're alive. They can follow you home. They can sit at your table. They really do govern in a lot of ways how we behave. It's a narrative. And that can be a good thing and a not so good thing. So depending on the narrative that you were told or you learned as you were growing up, that might have shaped your life, it might not be the most useful narrative to you. But stories are the way in which we have communicated with each other since we were drawing on cave walls with charcoal. And it's how we connect. It's how we connect heart to heart. And I will tell you that there's a difference between someone who's just reciting something And you've heard that. And they don't get you. They don't get you here. But when you hear someone share a heartfelt story, and it doesn't have to be black and deep and dark and the dance of the seven veils and revealing everything. It's heartfelt. Then that engages our imagination, our memories, our feelings, and we actually become part of the story. So I would say, what isn't important about stories?
Well, and I asked that question because I know people out there are like, yeah, of course, stories, but we don't hear it enough. But you said something very powerful, heartfelt. Here's a story. I've got a white cup and it helps me drink water. Doesn't rock my boat, doesn't make my heart flutter. But here's a story where I'm a paraplegic, like one of my stories that you've listened to a podcast. And now I help businesses go from 50 to 100 million in my wheelchair. That's a heartfelt story, not these stories of pitching and selling. So I'm glad you mentioned the heartfelt. So powerful.
Well, if I can add to that, the
Please.
reason it's powerful is because there's context in the content. The content is in your cup story. Cup, drink, coffee. That's just content. It's just facts. But in the story that you just offered us about the paraplegic, there's got to be some context there, meaning what happened to this person? How did they pull themselves up by the bootstraps? What sort of network and support did they have? And how did they use that to become the person who helps other businesses rise up? So you've got to have content married to context. Then the story rocks. Otherwise, it's just like fire picture frame computer. Who cares? Nobody.
Audience, she just trained me. And this is what she does for a living. No, I kind of did it purposely because that's important, because you don't want to waste your stories, especially when you meet
don't.
somebody for the first time or you're trying to, grow a relationship, which eventually will turn into a sale. Stories got to be good. And of course, they got to be true too. That's another thing.
That is.
I love this question, and you're a powerful woman. And I've told you that before. You're a powerful businesswoman. So what advice do you give women that are in male dominated professions? Even though I'm going to say this context is women are much better at business when it comes to love, emotion, and culture. So what advice do you give to a woman in a male dominated profession?
Wow, that's wide open.
It's a big one.
I'm going to say it depends on the audience that I'm talking to. It depends on the type of situation we're talking about. And I'll give you an example. So I was a litigation consultant, and I helped plaintiffs' attorneys, so the attorneys who were representing the injured parties, and I helped them get their story ready for trial. And in the legal profession, you probably have about a 50-50 split right there between the men and the women. And if I was talking to a room full of law students, my advice to them would be stick to your guns. Tell your story clear, concise, cogent. Stand up and speak with clarity and confidence, and don't back down. I mean, of course, if you're wrong, then you mess up and you fess up. But being able to stand your ground, to know what your origin story is. How did you get from there to here? How did you become a law student and then eventually a litigator? I want to know that story, because that story is going to be what also propels your power. And if I had to address the answer to the professional women generally, it would still be that. What's your origin story? Simon Sinek talks about your why, right? But what precedes your why is your who. Your who. And what runs through your who are your core values. And there's going to be a theme that runs through your life like a river. And it will have been there since you were a child. And that theme informs who you are, what you stand for, and what you won't stand for. So knowing that, that's the first thing. Know your who, that informs your why, and then stick with that. I believe that when a woman says, I know the truth, we have to pay attention, because It's women's voices that are helping us shift the narrative so that we are better able to live together in community and be working together with servants' hearts, as you say, Steve.
Mhm. Storytelling is a form of communication, right?
It is.
And how's that work?
I'm going to say something that people are going to disagree with, but I don't care. So here's what I believe. I believe that no one can teach you how to be a storyteller. A lot of people say they can. But I do believe that there are people who can teach you to teach yourself to be a storyteller. And by that, I mean, you have to come to know what your own story is, believe in the power of story, because when a story wants to be told, it will show up. It will ask to be told. And so once you have a hook on that, then you're in a position to teach yourself. Now, granted, you'll get the tips and the steps and whatnot from someone like myself, but to bring that into yourself, to bring the power of story and the telling of story into your bones, that's what you teach yourself to do. So someone can teach you how to play a piano. You have to teach yourself, with their guidance, how to be a pianist. Does that make sense, that
It does.
difference?
Yep.
Okay. And so, like dogs smell fear, people get when someone's story is inauthentic or coming from an inauthentic place. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's false, but you're just not being true to me. You're not being true with me. And so the power of story, because it's based so much on emotion and memory and imagination, has to be authentic. And that's the place where we connect. So story is made up of three things. It's the storyteller, it's the story listener, and it's the story itself. And in the intersection of those three, like the Olympic rings, that's where the power of story actually takes place. And so we have to honor that, respect that. And that to me is the beauty of the traditional way, the oral tradition of story, not so much the way we do it now.
So I'm hearing that you're going to help me, or people should help them find their own story. And you guide me into that, but then I find my story with your guidance. Correct?
See, that's the key. That right there is the key.
Yeah.
I am a story doula, midwife. I listen the story out of you. I believe, and I was taught this 30 years ago by one of my mentors, and if I learned nothing else from him, although I did, this was the most important thing I learned, which is everyone knows the story they want to tell. You just need someone to listen it out of you. And that is such an empowering thing. You already know what you want to say. You already know the story that you want to share. You just need someone to listen it out of you. And then they're listening it out of you in your own words, in your own voice. It's all you. And that feels like, whoa. I did that.
Yeah, that is just so powerful. And it makes it sound there's hope and faith, because it's that, not simple is not the right word, but it's there. It's not like everybody has it.
Exactly.
10 billion people in the world, every person, young and old, has it. Right?
That's right.
Okay.
It's exactly right. Yep.
So this leads to a question. How important is body language when telling your story?
Great question. It's individual. It's individual to everyone. I'm not one of those platform tellers that goes a leaping and a bounding around the stage. I make a lot of use of my hands, maybe because I'm Polish, although Italians do too.
Yeah.
So I think body language, to the extent that it fortifies and supports what it is that you're sharing and saying. So you can see me now. So I'm making gestures that I think are supporting or fortifying the words that I'm using. And to the extent that your body language does that, then that is helping convey the story, in part because those people who are visual and listening to the story get a little bit more support from your body language. How's that? Does that make sense?
One of the best answers I've ever heard in my 180 shows. Not that I've asked everybody that question, but I do talk to a lot of people about story. That's what a podcast is. We're telling the story of Diane
That's all it is.
and your thing, what you do. Thank you very much. Let's get personal a little bit.
Okay.
We've all had challenges. If you've run your own business, we know entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and business owners. So what's been some of your challenges and how did you overcome them? And you can pick one if you got, too many.
You know, I would say it's that know, like, trust thing. It's very different. So when I started Lightning Rod Communications, which was my litigation consulting practice that ran for about 12 years, nationally known, people were going to trial on Monday and Sunday night. Somebody would say, call Diane. And that's all you had to do. You were known. Word of mouth was the best referral. Very little marketing. You didn't have to do a whole lot of stuff online and social media. This wasn't that long ago. I launched in 2004. Now I know it's 20 years, but it's not that long ago. It's not like, before the automobile was invented. And so today, there is a lot more noise. There is a lot more distraction. There are a lot more platforms on which you can get to be known. And so for me, coming kind of from old school, the challenge has been, how do I rise above the noise? And how do I become known for what I do without spreading myself on all of the social media platforms? How do I focus my attention on what works best for me and trusting that I know what that is? So that's been the hard one.
Yeah, and that's a great lesson because that's across the board. Social media is always a challenge for everybody. How much do we ads, this, that? It's a very complex world. And of course, there's people out there to help and it's so important. And I'm going to dive into something deeply personal about you're an incest survivor. And praise the Lord, you're here and you're doing great. And thank you, Lord, for that. But how has that shaped your work as a communication change maker, storyteller?
That is an excellent question. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Because so those who are listening will know that as an incest survivor, you are not heard, listened to, paid attention to. You don't have a voice. And even if you try to use your voice, you're told that you're lying or you're mistaken or this didn't happen. And so for a long time, I shuttered my voice, shutter as in like Windows shuttered my voice because I grew up thinking, well, okay, I was mistaken. I did something wrong. And over time, and this is only making sense, looking back, but over time, what I understood is that helping people, specifically women, be seen, heard, understood, and listened to is the gift that came out of that. And so if I were to track back, I said earlier, there's a theme that runs through your life like a river. The theme in my life is injustice, meaning pushing back on injustice. And by that, I mean making things right. How can I make things right? And so, as a nurse, as a lawyer, as a litigation consultant, as a businesswoman, there's always been that, how can I make things right? And so Quarter Moon Story Arts, the podcast, the work that I do helping women discover their origin story, it is all part and parcel of that, of having a voice. And if there was a chance to do that over, I wouldn't. I look back at my life and all these chances that you get, I want to do over this. No, because I would not have learned what I learned and what I'm able to turn around and share, but for the fact that this was the hand I was dealt. This is the help I had playing that hand, and this is how it shows up.
Thank you, because that's so impactful for people out there listening, have addictions and different. Yeah, if you don't have a voice, we'll never know. Like dogs, we kind of figure out when they're hurting, the yelp, or but a lot of times we don't. We
Mm-mm.
can't talk to them.
Mm-mm.
And dogs don't have a voice, and I'm not going to get into people that harm dogs, and I'll stop there because it really
Mm.
makes my hair stand on end.
Mhm.
But let's jump into and I love what you said, and please, we'll find how to reach out to Diane later because you're going to want to talk about your podcast. It's such an incredible podcast.
It's a lot of fun. I was
Yeah.
talking about it with my sister this morning. So 4 years ago, the 4-year anniversary will be April 1, 2024. So 4 years ago, I stepped into a workshop with Seth Godin and Akimbo only because I was looking for something to do, and a friend said, "Hey, this might be good." And on the first day, they wanted to know, what's it for, who's it for, why does it matter, and what do you want to call it? Well, I know stories, I know women, and I know walking. So I'm going to call it Stories from Women Who Walk. And the cover art is a selfie of me as I was on the Camino de Santiago. I was leaving France. I was headed over the Pyrenees Mountains into Spain. So that's what the cover art is. And the first year, was interviewing women who were walking their lives, and something happened and it pivoted their lives. And what did they do? How did they handle that? And so that was my first year, and it was a lot of fun. And in the course of that, one of my coaches said, "You are really good at distilling information and reducing things to sound bites and nuggets. What if you created a platform out of an exercise that we used to have in the class?" And that was 60 seconds. Can you reduce a message to 60 seconds, a call to action to 60 seconds? Can you do that? Like, sure. Give me something
Yeah.
I can't handle. And so that's what I did. I created, under the umbrella of Stories from Women Who Walk, a daily podcast called 60 Seconds. And there's one for motivating your Monday or taking a time out for mindfulness on Tuesday. Wednesdays on Whidbey, I talk about quarter moon and what I offer. Thoughts on Thursday, and then story prompt Friday. And it's a blend. It's a blend of wisdom and inspiration and practical tips for your professional life or your personal life. The story prompts are there to give you something to story about. And sometimes, I don't always do it 60 seconds, but
Yeah.
I keep it pretty close. I dropped the 1000th episode on New Year's Day. And so we're rolling from that. And that's been most fun. That has been the most fun because I hadn't encountered anybody that was doing that. I think we're in the top 3%, the top 3% of
Nice.
podcasts, which is nice. Yeah, I think my friends in Britain would call that small beer, but you know what? Beer is beer. I'm
You got a beer
happy.
there. Yeah. Small or big.
You
It's
got a
there.
beer. So it's enjoyable. There's a global audience, and the one thing that sets it apart, I think, is that I can see where people are listening on the analytics map on the Simplecast platform. And so every episode, I start with a shout out, hello to you listening in. And then I put a hot link, and I'll name a place, Lisbon, Spain, Lisbon, Portugal. And then I put a hot link so that if you want to armchair travel to Lisbon, Portugal, you can. But that is my way of honoring and saying thank you to listeners. And it's so fun because I get to explore the whole wide world. And there's little tiny villages, and yeah, that's one of the best parts.
When what I
It's a
love,
lot of
and
fun.
everybody knows I'm a podcast coach and mentor, that's powerful because you've built a podcast under your own desires and passions, and you're having fun with it. Will you make
I
money on it or
got
not?
that.
That should be the first thing, is your passion and fun. The money should come later. If it comes, great. If it doesn't, I have fun doing these. This has been a great show. There's just so much fun learning about people. So shout out to that.
Yeah.
Last question before we
Mhm.
run out of time here. What is your description of a servant heart?
Description of a servant heart. I would say that it is a heart that shows up in a person who willingly shares what they have of themselves to offer So who I am is what I have to offer, and what I have to offer is what's uniquely mine. I think it comes from that space. I never thought about that before. Thank you for asking that question.
No, it's a great answer because I really talk to a lot, especially coaches, client falls, hey, I don't want to give up my IP. This is my personal program. Give it away. They still need you. Your
Mhm.
program is yours, but I can't, I mean, I could take it, but I'm only going to go so far because I don't have the origin of that
Yep,
business to work
that's
with. And
it.
so thank you. So well
That's it.
said. How can people get a hold of you? Because I know people like on their computer ready to send you an email or whatever, call you. How can they get a hold of you?
The easiest way is Diane, Diane, at quartermoonstoryarts.net. I'm also at info, that's easier, info at quartermoonstoryarts.net. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can always DM me on LinkedIn. And finally, do check out the podcast, Stories from Women Who Walk. It's on every single platform out there. And I would love to have a discovery chat with you and find out what you need and how I can be of use.
She's a blessing, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you've been on, and
Thank you.
I want to have you back. We're going to
I'd
do part
love
two because
that.
there's a lot to do. Like you said, we only covered the surface, but I think it's enough where the audience is going to be
It
excited.
is.
I'm excited. And thank you all for listening. Don't forget, as I always say, listen to Diane's show a couple of times. There's so many golden nuggets there that you might have missed or didn't understand. And then skim through it, fast forward, back up. What do you know? You could do that on YouTube and on these podcasts and pick these tips up because they're $1 million tips that she's
Thank
offering
you.
for free because she's got that big servant's heart. Don't forget about my TV show, Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Together We Serve. The links will be in the chat, in the show notes. And our podcast swag is out. T-shirts, hats, different things. So that link is in the show notes as well. If you're interested in doing business with Servant's Heart swag. And I want to thank you all for listening. This has been an incredible show, and we've got more to come on doing business with a servant's heart.